Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I thought I would follow up a little bit on what we talked about the other day, give you an opportunity to see another connection to what we had talked about. If you remember, last time we showed you this, we were concerned with control, consistency, and efficiency. And this model follows through constantly throughout the stages of our project. And today I wanted to just bring you up to speed as to where I am on my project, show you how those things reconnect back to what it is that we talked about the other day. Okay? As we progress through our project, we continue to problem solve constantly. We continue to critically think, and we continue to make decisions. And we want to just take a quick look at one little step of this project and see how those things play out. My current project I'm finishing, and finishing is where we apply a finish to the project. If you remember yesterday, what I did was I showed you how I drilled these pockets in here for these hinges that pop in here that hold the cabinet doors onto the cabinets. Those are all done. What I did after that was sand all of my doors down. I applied a coat of primer, and I want to show you a little bit about that today. But what I need to do is consider, again, what I have control of, what I can do to make sure that my work is consistent, and what I can do to keep my work efficient too as I work my way through there. The purpose of my finishing then, if we think of finish, we could stain a project, we could paint a project, we could put wax onto a project. Some people turn some pens in class. We'd even put super glue on as a finish. And what the finish does is a couple of things. It's going to protect the project from the elements. If I'm making a pen and I put a finish on it, I have to protect it from my hands. My hand gets greasy and dirty. And I have to make sure that I protect the material that the pen's made out of. It also makes it easier to clean too. It gives it a nice sealed surface that provides an opportunity for us to keep things clean. So what I want to do on my doors here is I want to make sure that they are properly finished. Part of that finish is the aesthetics, what it looks like, and then there's the function of it, how it protects the door. So I want to make sure it does both of those things. What I have control of in here is my finish type. There's lots of choices out there. I decided that what I wanted was a painted finish, and if I'm going to paint the surface, I need to understand a little bit about that and make sure that I follow through in a process so that I end up with the result that I'm looking for. What I really want is to have a nice, smooth, even finish that looks good and that's durable, that I can use for years and years and years. If it gets dirty, I can wipe it down and it won't affect the finish. It'll just clean it off and continue to look good, and then to function to protect the material that the door is made of, the wood that it's made of, to make sure that it doesn't warp or twist or crack or any of those kinds of things. So my controls, I started by priming my doors, and what I used is this shellac finish. It's a shellac primer, kind of stinky stuff. I'm a big fan of Sherwin-Williams paint, so I chose to use that. And I'm going to apply 2 coats of this finish, which is a urethane trim enamel that I'm going to put on the surface to make it look good and again to make it durable. The purpose of my primer is to seal the wood. It's a little bit thinner of a material and it's less expensive. I can coat that on, it soaks in, seals and locks all of the wood in together, and then provides a nice surface for me to work on. So the step that I'm on today is actually sanding in between coats. I'm sanding between my primer coat and my first coat of paint. And what I need to do again is think about what it is that I have control over. My goal again is to get a nice, smooth, even finish, make it look good and be durable. And as I'm sanding, I have lots of things that I can do in my control if I understand what I can do. What I'm attempting to do, I'm attempting to get the surface to be nice and perfectly flat, perfectly smooth. You can look at this and this one looks a little rough, and that's just because of the primer that I put on there. Okay, and now what I want to do is sand in between coats to keep it smooth. so that my next coat starts on a nice smooth surface, sand in between that, put on my final coat, and I should have a nice good finish by the time I get there. A little bit of what I do is understanding, and that's because I have experience. Okay? I've done it before, so because of that I have a good idea as to what I need to do. If you're unsure as to what you need to do on any step of your project, we always start with some research. You don't have to come up with all of the answers all the time. You don't have to start from scratch. By having an iPad and access to the internet, you basically have access to all of the answers that you could want. And we can go out and see and verify different methods to do things, different processes, and choose the one that works best for us. So as I go through and sand, which seems like a really simple thing, we've done that dozens of times in class. What we want to try to do is take a look at what our control is, what do we have for options, and then we want to make some good decisions as to what's going to work best for us. The first thing we think of when we go to sanding is a nice little palm sander. Nice power sander makes our work easy. We talk about efficiency. It can make our work efficient because it's actually spinning the paper for us. It's less movement that we have to make. So it provides us an opportunity to be efficient in our sanding. The problem that I have with this sanding now is I've got a really thin coat of primer on here. If I hit this with this power sander, it'll probably just peel off all of the material that I put on, and that's not going to do me any good. So this isn't a good choice. I can grab a piece of sandpaper. I can take the sandpaper and I could sand my surface down. One of the problems with this decision is that the sandpaper is flexible. If I put my hand on there, it actually follows the contours of my hand, and it's more likely to hit in different spots. In between my fingers, there's less pressure, and because of that, it's not going to sand evenly. I could adjust my hand back and forth and try to make sure that it's a little bit more consistent. Don't forget, we're looking for that consistency too. We want the project to come out the same on every single door. I now have 14 doors. So on every single one, I want it to look consistent. So this might not be a good choice either. I have these little sanding blocks. They're kind of nice and convenient. One of the advantages of these is that they are consistent. They're nice and shaped in a nice square, which means when I get into these little edges, my sanding block can actually fit in there. And that would be a good choice. One of the problems with this too is it's flexible. And although it's fairly consistent as I push down on it, that it maintains some consistency. One of the problems is that in my doors, I've got a couple of errors here. Let me see if I can find one and show you. If you look right on here, you can see, if I can get it to show up, you can see that there's a couple of runs on the board right over there. I keep getting a shadow here, but right here there's a couple little bumps on my board, which are a run in the paint. If I try to sand that down, the paint is actually really hard, really strong. That's how the paint lasts so long. Look at the paint on a car that we drive around for 20 years, and out in the rain and snow and rocks and all the kinds of things that the car has to interact with, and the finish is just a fraction of an inch thick, yet it protects the vehicle. Our paint on our cabinet does the exact same thing. It's a fraction of an inch thick, but it's actually really durable. So that means it's difficult for us to sand it. If I have a run, which would be a bump, if I try to sand across that bump, what's going to happen is I'm going to maintain that shape. I'm going to take out some of the material on the side as I try to remove that bump. So even though this is an option and a really good one, it might not be the best. When I do something like this, believe it or not, this is what I use. Just a straight edge razor blade. My advantage is when you stop and think about control, what I'm trying to do is get the surface to be nice and flat. This is a nice flat edge, okay? As I take this, I actually drag this across the board. And as I drag it across, what it does is knocks off all of the bumps. So when I get to that run that I had, which is right down here, what I can do is just drag my blade across it. It will actually knock that bump off. My run is gone. Okay? And now I have a nice flat surface. When I do this, I'm trying to just scrape across the surface because because the surface is flat, it doesn't scratch anymore into the boards. It knocks off little dust, the little tiny high spots. And I do get a difference in appearance. You start to see that I get a dull spot, you can see across here, and shiny spot. The dull spot is where I've actually taken off some of that finish on here. I try to also follow a process when I do that. Try to do the panel first, do the rails and stiles last, do the edges to make sure that I'm consistent. Okay? So, in conclusion, what we want to try to do is understand what you're trying to do first. That should be your first stop. Know your options. I have lots of options on finish. I have lots of options on sanding. Okay? And I have to try to make good decisions. Don't forget to take control. You're in control. You are the person making those decisions. Your process that you choose to do is completely in your control. We want to try to be consistent. Whatever you do on one, do on the next one, do on the next one, do on the next one. After a while, you get into the habit. And then you have a personal process that you actually follow to make sure that your work is good. And don't forget, we're trying to work efficiently. Okay? Efficiently means that what we have to do is we have to balance out what is the quality that we're looking for and what is the time we're willing to spend. Okay? We're trying to get really good quality. We want to try to do it in the quickest time. If I can do it in the quickest time, I can actually do it cheaper if I was selling something. This is for me personally, so time really isn't an issue. Okay? I just wanted to make sure that I end up with a nice quality job. Hopefully this clears up some of the things that we talked about yesterday. And what we're going to do is actually apply this to a project that you can do. Again, keep in mind, take control. Understand what you can control. Make good decisions about it. Be consistent. Consistency, I can do it over and over and over and over again and end up with the same results. And if we do that, we're actually working efficiently. Okay? We're getting good quality, and we're spending a reasonable amount of time to get that, kind of balancing those two things off. Hope this helps out. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thanks.